Steve, welcome to the show. I'm very excited to talk with you today.
I'm jazzed to be able to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you. So, just a moment ago, we were getting into talking about some things that are happening in the world, which seemed very pressing, and they were on your mind, and I'm thinking about them too. So, why don't you take it away? Tell me a little bit about what's going on with your life and what you're doing right now.
Well, we really are trying to provide a method of healing for people, and we feel like uh, if we don't have a physiology or a body, a biology that is functional and relational, that then what you see is, the gross distortions of our nature that we find now in the world, and violence and greed and profit seeking, destruction of ecosystems and the planetary, climate, and so to be able to be sensitive to that, to be able to actually respond to that, I think we have to get out of overwhelm. And that's not done by, like just, holing up in your bunker, waiting for doomsday. That our body, our biology, our physiology can actually improve its functioning and become more capable of facing the moment.
Are you talking about a disconnect right now, where we become separated, mind, body, spirit, all of these disconnects?
Yeah, yeah. And classically, we call that in psychology, we call it dissociation.
Yeah.
And so that's our jam. We work specifically with not only sort of the big dissociations, what you think of as like dissociative identity disorder or the whole dissociative range of psychopathology, but we are working with the little disconnections, and those little disconnections, like making the connection between how I'm moving in the world and how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking, and how I am experiencing the world today out there is all filtered through our biology. And so we work with that filter so that then we can begin to actually orient ourselves to reality.
hmm Yeah, these dissociations, whether big or small, what I found from people I'm working with is almost every condition that people are experiencing physiologically, like even something like cancer or ADHD, all of these are coming back to a disconnect. And that disconnect is usually beginning with very early trauma in life. From what I've seen, what you're doing, this seems like it's right up your alley as well.
Yeah, you're so right, and there is what is classically called post-traumatic stress disorder, and that is some of the most specifically defined areas, and even with that, in that there is a kind of dissociative flavor that happens, but the everyday trauma is also something that we look at, and we think of it in terms of how much our brain can process. How much information can our brain process? And when we are just overexposed and overstimulated, that overquality means there is the threshold of our processing that's being exceeded. And so, mostly what people counsel us is to decrease the load. Like, improve your thinking, think more positively, and try to work with your emotions so that they're not so hyperactive or not so hot. And we do that, but we also do something else, which we think is at the core of it, which is that threshold of too much. You can actually grow that threshold. So yeah, you can improve the amount of intensity coming your way by better thinking, feeling, mental hygiene, skills, exercise, diet, all of that. But that just helps you deal with the threshold or the ceiling of processing that you have. We think that's important. And what we add to that is you can actually grow that threshold. You can grow the capacity of what we can process. And we think that's our unique contribution.
hmm So we got a couple things here. We have this stimulus of everything that's happening around us, which
Right?
I was thinking about it just the other day. We talk about something like you hear Trump derangement syndrome everywhere you look right now. And the idea of Trump derangement syndrome is that people have this very negative view of Donald Trump. Whether it's true or false, people are grounded in this lens that they're looking at this person and this structure through. I was looking at it from an interesting thing, which was maybe the Trump derangement syndrome is that you can't turn it off. No
Hmm.
matter where you look, no matter where you go, the information is constantly encroaching into your personal space. There's
Yep.
no saying, no, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to engage with that. And of course, the TDS would be a metaphor for all of the noise, the information, all of these structures that are constantly bombarding us with information. And it sounds like this is in line with what you're talking about with this overstimulation of all the things that are coming in. Now, what I see is when we're children and we're developing, when all of our capacities to regulate emotions are developing, for instance, and our capacity to navigate the world is developing, is we never learn how to do those things. We never learn how to recognize, identify emotions, let alone process or express or soothe our emotions. So we become overwhelmed very easily. And the way
Yeah.
we adapt is we disconnect. We go away mentally. We leave the present moment. So this, when you're talking about increasing our capacity to engage with stimulus, it sounds like we're talking about really going back to the foundations of what it takes to navigate the world around us that the majority of us never really learned how to do.
I'm just thinking we should probably just stop this interview right now. You have just said what everybody needs to know right there. It's encapsulated so beautifully. And so yes, there is that the work that we need to do that creates the what's called like self-regulation.
Hmm.
So self-regulation is I'm learning to metabolize experience. I'm learning to calm, self-soothe. I notice that, oh, if I see a commercial on TV or I see the news, I can't stop that from coming in, but I can do something about my reaction. I am having some kind of activity, and that can be, as you're saying, that can be like wildly positive, yay, for that side, or boo, I don't like that side. But either way, it is an intensity that then our system has to process. So yes, dampening those reactivities or somehow self-regulating is really important, and we'll have to do it less if my system can operate and process that material automatically. That is, there is what I can do to put on the brakes, but there is also what our own biology does naturally to put on the brakes. And ultimately, as little people, we are hopefully having the conditions in which our biology learns to do that. And as you say, that's not common, really. We are all struggling to find, the emergency brake or the escape chute or something to get some control over our situation, and that's a good thing. And if our capacity is greater and our natural organic equanimity is on board, we describe that as being processing capacity or bandwidth. And that's our specialty, is growing that bandwidth and that capacity that's organic. And I don't have to do anything about it. In fact, the more capacity that I have, the less I have to do overall, because my system is doing its thing. It's got bigger capacity, so I'm not pushed to the red line quite so often.
Mm. Okay. So, with this increasing capacity, we can be much more present in the moment. We can exercise choice. We can actually navigate the circumstances that we're experiencing. And when we can exercise responsibility or the ability to respond, then the biological systems of our body that have all this intuitive wisdom and knowledge can then come back into their state of functioning or flowing. I think it was Friedrich Nietzsche that said, there's more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy. And these philosophies, in this sense, could be the adaptations that we developed early on of the mental lens, the worldview, all of the beliefs, core beliefs of ourselves and the world around us. And if we can build much more capacity and bandwidth to be flexible in terms of how we navigate things, then we have this more natural, authentic wisdom of functioning in our bodies that can come out. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly it. And that wisdom of functioning is then spontaneous and effortless. And
Hmm.
it's a flow. It's a non-efforted quality of being because I'm not having to be busy guarding my thresholds of intensity.
Hmm.
Like all that intensity is below threshold, so whatever comes then is done sort of for me. We call it auto-regulation instead of self-regulation. Both
Hmm.
are important. We have limiting beliefs, about ourselves and the world. We have these limiting beliefs. Yes, let's reevaluate those, replace those with better beliefs. And when you grow that threshold, there's less pressure, and so there's less confirmation bias about those beliefs, like people are selfish and greedy, or people are mean, and people are, whatever those limiting beliefs are. We can reevaluate those effortlessly because we begin to see that people are people, and we just get to be present with them to have an experience rather than confirming my beliefs about how things are going. And that's about people, that's about the world, about nature, about the cosmos. Everything can be, as you say, just an experience of the moment in the present, and that's classically called liberation.
Liberation. And you brought up something really important here, I think, which was how much energy of our capacity do we put into these patterns that at one point may have helped us, may have even saved our lives at one point, these
Yes,
adaptations, but
yes.
now have become the source of great pain and suffering.
Mm,
For instance, we can easily mistake connection for conflict. And we can learn that very early in our lives. So if our relationship with our parents was one based on conflict, judgment, evaluation, criticism, punishment, and that was how we got our interaction, well, then later in life, since the primary relationship of connection and compassion looked like conflict, we put all of our energy towards looking for conflict. And
yeah,
if we can take that energy that we have been channeling through this pattern that causes us to suffer so much, and we can liberate ourselves from that, well, now we can direct all of that capacity, all that energy into something more authentic and more in line with our actual nature, which I
yeah,
think is where things really start to open up. So once, I mean, healing the trauma is so important and we have to put a great deal of effort into this. But
yes.
when we get to this threshold of what you're talking about, of, okay, I have more capacity, I'm more present, I have much more bandwidth, I can engage, I'm more flexible, a whole new world, a whole new range of possibilities seems to open up. Is this where we're getting at now?
And this is exactly where we're getting at. And there are typical patterns of those compensations. So, maybe there is Freud called it the repetition compulsion. We just call it self-reinforcing, kind of programming. But the notion like relationship is found through conflict is one of them, or relation is found through compulsive helping. That's another one. Relationship is found through separation and isolation. That's where safety and is found. So there are all of these predispositions and compensations, and then we find conflict actually doesn't get my needs met, or like isolation doesn't get my needs met and doesn't create the environment that really feels nurturing and wholesome. And then we begin to question those if we're lucky. It's quite a thing, isn't it? Like being lucky is the realization that I've been wrong about how things work. Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes.
Yeah, and taking accountability. I mean, first thing, looking at the way that we're living life honestly and truthfully, that is so hard to do. We like to look at it as we want it to be.
Yeah,
Carl Rogers famously said that the interesting paradox is when I accept myself exactly as I am, that's when I have the capacity to make changes. So
yeah,
if we're denying the reality of who we are and how we're living life, we can't actually see it. We can't actually engage with it. And when we can do that and we can take accountability, and one of the examples you used is I use conflict to maintain connections, or I use distance and isolation. Well, when we can see, okay, I'm aloof, I'm distant, so they'll want to engage with me, and I'm
yeah,
playing all my energy into this game of distance. Well, that creates conflict and distance, which is the
right?
thing that I'm actually trying to avoid to begin with. So if I see that and I can take my energy out of that pattern and instead direct it to nurturing my connections, taking
Hmm.
care of connecting with myself, nurturing with myself, and then of course dedicating my energy towards connecting and nurturing with other people. Well, now things can go so much deeper and it can be so much more light, like the weight comes off because I'm
Right?
not always worrying about the conflict. And again, here we see a whole new range of possibilities open up, a whole new type of connection and depth of connection opens
Yeah.
up if we can channel that attention to something else.
Yeah, right. And if we can, in the midst of that, have grown our bandwidth because relationship and emotionality and affective exchange and really being present in the moment to all of the changing complexities, even in a conversation like this, it's a lot. And
Hmm.
so and good news, we can grow the bandwidth for that, and we're made for it.
Hmm.
And so all of the notions that we're describing, because we're organic intelligence, is what's available to us. It's what's our nature. We are fundamentally relational and social and loving beings primarily. And to be able to get into that situation, let go of some of the compensations, grow bandwidth, so then we discover for ourselves this self acceptance and the reason for that, which is that we have this fundamental nature of kindness and affection and care and responsibility, which is actually joy in the end. So yes, that's exactly the direction we're going.
Hmm.
And the other thing, Julian, that I should say is that where each of us are, like the growth that we've done and all the work that we've done to heal our trauma and so on, there's a whole range of places that people live in suffering or satisfaction. There's a whole range of that. And I think what we try to do in organic intelligence is bring to the forefront attunement with the person where they are. And so it's not like we are suggesting, oh, be enlightened, be liberated, be kind, be it's like just be where you are. It's much more along the lines of Carl Rogers there, who said there are these three characteristics of like a really solid therapeutic interaction, which is just empathy,
Hmm.
congruence, and unconditional positive regard. If we could just sort of practice those. But sorry, what I was saying was we train to see that people are in different degrees of readiness,
Yeah.
and we have to meet them at their moment of readiness. If people are just struggling and suffering and feeling, depressed and anxious and fearful all the time, any of my talk about liberation is so far off the map.
Right.
And so we really map this according to where the person is and what they're ready for.
Hmm.
And we read that primarily in terms of a biological readiness, and we map that preparedness.
Yeah, you're talking about attunement. You used it there. And
Yes.
this is crucial. I think, and I hear so many people talk about this, the foundation of a therapeutic relationship is attunement. Can we, as coaches, therapists, whatever, be with the person that we're working with at the state that they're at? And
Yes.
so much spiritual teaching, for instance, is, well, I found enlightenment. I know how to be peaceful. The problem is you don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And this is very similar to where the disconnect, the dissociation started, which was when we were kids and we went, Mommy, Daddy, I'm scared. They went, there's nothing to be scared of.
Right?
So there was no attunement there.
Yes.
We were invalidated and we were disconnected. And then we went into isolation very early.
Yes.
And so if we can't do that in these therapeutic relationships, if we can't be with the person where they're at, there's no healing or growth that happens there. Talk to me a little bit about the process. What are you doing here when you're really working with somebody, and how are you tapping into these biological processes that you're talking about?
We begin with attunement, really being with the person where they are. And that means that our first mindset isn't like, oh, now I'm going to help you, or now we're going to think about some ways to change things to make things better. We don't think about change at first because I think that that gives a message that is improper.
That's so
We
important.
begin, yeah, right? So we begin with attunement where the person is and not thinking about change, but thinking about that acceptance.
Hmm.
And the what's behind all of that is that we begin as OI coaches with the presumption and the conviction of the client's pre-existing wholeness. Now that's going to make no sense for a client who's really struggling,
Hmm.
but for the coach to hold that for the client until they can get it for themselves, that's what we do. We begin by believing in and recognizing that the client has this insistent, arising, and innate intelligence that is a reflection of their wholeness, and that we've just, for all the reasons you described, the clients, we're people are just disconnected from it.
Yeah.
And so we have a freestyle conversation. We're just doing the kind of chatting thing. And within that, coaches are trained to recognize where the small signals from that integrative intelligence is beginning to show up in the conversation, and we just highlight that. We just become more interested in that.
So you're helping people reconnect with a part of themselves, the part of them that is whole, that has all the wisdom, that knows how to heal, that knows how to thrive, that knows how to be whole. It's all inside of each and every one of us. And what you're doing is helping them find it, reconnect with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the finding of that is not necessarily a conscious thing. I think we've been told that, oh, it's all about this consciousness. Be a conscious of your wholeness. But we start by being aware of what's wrong.
Hmm.
The negativity bias is like one of the most common and powerful influences on us. And so
Sure.
our attention has really sold us on the idea that there's something wrong, and especially something wrong with me.
Yes.
And so we don't attack that and try to like talk somebody out of that, but instead we just gradually are reflecting our interest in the inevitable evidence to the contrary.
Hmm.
So a person's hand comes to the side of their face as they're just bemoaning all the struggles that they're having to do. And so there's the struggle that is conscious, and then there's what's at the side of their hand. And so we may, instead of going, hey, look, there's this hand on the side of your face, that's like this really like tender touch. I wonder if you might just feel that for a moment. We might just begin by bringing our own hand there and enjoying that good lesson that we get from the client. And in that we share a moment that is perhaps wordless and isn't even bringing consciousness to that gentle messaging. It's
Hmm.
just the co-enjoying of the experience, and in that way, we're doing no kind of threat to the person's compensations, no kind of threat to their belief systems. We're just enjoying
Hmm.
together, and that then registers into the biology.
Mm.
We're registering into the implicit system of understanding and then beginning to build piece by piece the coral, the archipelago, these little islands where people can begin to access greater sense of safety.
Hmm. Yeah. How can you have safety when you're judging, criticizing, evaluating yourself, and then trying to change, fix, get rid of, exile, suppress all these parts of yourself that are there? And that was what we started with. And that was we'll be caught in those patterns of treating ourselves this way of, I have this thing and I want
Yeah,
it to go away. I have
yeah,
this emotion, this pain, this feeling. I behave this way and I don't like it. I want it to go away. And all that'll consume all of our attention. We'll just be stuck in this negative feedback loop of, I'm in pain, so I treat myself terribly because I want it to go away, which then causes me to be in pain, and round I go. But
yes,
at the same time, in that exact same moment, there's another part of us that's there who knows how to comfort, who knows how to have safety. And if you're really connected and attuned with them, you can see that. And then I can just share this moment with you is, this exists too. We don't
yeah,
have to get rid of this other part at all. In
right,
fact, that's a part
right,
of you. Let's learn to take this comforting that's over here and soothe this other part. Now,
right,
when you're in conflict, your body gets really tense and you're pumping all these hormones, adrenaline, cortisol, histamines. Your heartbeat gets excited, your breathing's
yeah,
constricted, your muscles are tense. Oh, how can you ever be safe there? And if you're fighting with yourself, that's where we stay at. But if we can see, oh, this comforting exists too. The safety,
yeah,
it's here, it's inside of me. And then we can keep bringing our attention to that. This doesn't have to go away. We don't have to get rid of it. We can
yeah.
comfort it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. This fully inclusive perspective that you're bringing, I think, is certainly consistent too with what we've discovered in OI. And the other is somehow gradually realizing that there is this sort of other impulse that is a reflection of who we really are. And I think part of the challenge that we face is that there is an implicit message, and sometimes it comes across in traditions like, oh, we gotta like get rid of the ego, and there's this destruction of the former false self or something that
Cut the
has
head
to
off the
happen.
snake.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. And if instead we can befriend that, as you're
Mm-hmm.
describing, and uh, and and somehow include both, but in a way that doesn't require that change. And that's what I really appreciate about what you're saying is that we don't have to really change. We're just shifting perspectives. We're just shifting the prioritization of attentional resources. Like, oh, I can pay attention to what's wrong, or I can pay attention to or include both the challenge and the support that's happening at the same time. And that broadly inclusive program, I think, is just really important because people come in to coaches for change. And so our message is, oh, here's the change, no change at all. And that's the biggest change, which is like, oh, I don't actually have to change.
Yeah. Yeah. When we start talking about caring for that part of us that's in all that conflict and carries around all that pain, I find that a lot of people are actually repulsed by that part of them. They don't like it. They want it to go away. And when we start trying to figure out, well, what did that part of you need? What were the needs here that caused all that pain? And the needs are almost always the same. It's the attunement, the connection, the presence, the
Yeah,
acceptance, and the caring, the comforting.
yeah,
And how can you do that? How can you comfort that part of you? Well, people usually, a lot of times, will draw a blank here. They'll say, I don't know. I have no idea. But if we can really draw that attention back to that part of them that does know how to comfort, well, all that wisdom's there. They'll know exactly how to do it. They can do it for their kids. They can do it for their dog. They can do it for strangers. And then can we just apply all those things that are already here to this part of you that's in all this pain? Can you do it, extend all that compassion and understanding to yourself? So yeah,
Yeah.
there's no change here. It's all here already. It's just how can we nurture and harness these dynamics and this wisdom that's already here?
Oh, that's so brilliant, and the thing that we're bringing to the therapy world is something that is so hard to believe, which is that change in these thresholds in the processing capacity, this happens through the experience of the intensity of those things. Like the experience of the positive aspects, if you will, the positive intensity, that's how we actually grow thresholds. I was trained as a just a classical psychotherapist. And so we were trained to bring out what had been repressed or what was the problem or what's been suppressed or the sadness, the anger, the fear, let's get in touch with the trauma, the previous. But all of that has a negative valence, which means it's much more difficult to integrate. Instead, we focus on, and this is almost heretical in the world of therapy, we focus on the intensity behind these positive experiences because it doesn't add intensity. There's no reactivity so much, and we look for these everyday experiences in a conversation that are like positive arousal states, and we ride those arousal states in their natural sort of ups and downs, and in that's what we believe calibrates and recalibrates the system. So we actually grow capacity not through uncovering the challenge or doing exposure therapy on what's wrong so much, although there's value in that. We instead are looking at these positive arousal states and find that that's how the system grows its threshold, like a little workout. Oh, I've lifted, the 5 pound dumbbell, and then in a couple of days I'm ready for the 6 pound dumbbell and the 7 pound, and we grow through that incorporation of the intensity thresholds through resource primarily, and not random resources. They're all unique to the individual, but it's this radical idea that we actually grow capacity. We process the stuff that is uncomfortable through positive arousal states and growing these thresholds. And that's dramatically, new.
Hmm. Yeah, so much of the therapy will focus on what's wrong. And that can be important, right? It's important to realize like where we're in conflict with ourselves, and we have to identify and recognize the patterns so we can see when we're stuck in it.
Yep.
But what about the things that are going right? For instance, one of the things that we suppress very early in life is play. We don't
Yeah.
really playfully, joyfully, interactively, agenda free engage with life. It's all structured and has all of these expectations on it. And if we can really tap into that, then there's some of this. I don't know if this is the positive intensity that you're talking about. Tell me more about that positive intensity.
Yeah, yeah. It would give us, if we were to raise these thresholds, then we would have more capacity for curiosity, exploration,
Hmm.
play, relationship, all of these things. So when we're talking about the coaching setting, we are just having a regular conversation, and we are looking because there is this latent, unconscious, or even secret messaging that's coming right from our own being, our own system, that is a counterpoint to all of the attention to what's wrong, the negativity bias. And so, as a person is describing, for instance, what they are, what they're interested in, you may notice that they're like leaning left and leaning right. There's a little wave motion that's happening, and it might be called self-soothing in some circles, but at each moment, there are particular behaviors, states that are arising that have that positive import, that have that positive intensity that will raise the intensity of this system up to a certain level that is the growth threshold, or what we call the organic threshold. And that's the learning intensity that then the system says, oh, yeah, I got that 5 pound intensity. Now I want to do the 6 pound and the 7 pound. And all of this is spontaneously arising. It's spontaneously emerging. All the intensities that we need to grow from a 5 pound dumbbell system to a 1,000 pound dumbbell system are coming in naturally and organically. And we just train people to see what that is in each moment. And it comes in images, it comes in sensations, comes in meanings and thoughts, and it comes in feelings. But we don't know which channel it's coming in. That's the ISOMA channels, right? The image, sensation, orientation, meaning, and affect. That that it comes in some of those channels, but they're unconscious.
Mhm.
And would they become felt, then they increase the biological intensity. It comes up to that 6 pound dumbbell intensity level, and then they're soon ready for the 7. And in a session, it goes just like that. There's 5 pounds, 6 pounds, 7 pound, 8 pound. All of those intensities come up, they're experienced, and then the person is presented with the next one and the next one. And it's all natural.
Mhm.
It's all completely spontaneous and organic. Wow.
Yeah, this is getting interesting. We're talking about signals, messages coming through from life or from our own being. And can we see them? And can we interact with them and engage with them? It's very challenging for a lot of people because we learned so early to suppress signals
Yes.
like
Yes.
emotions.
Yes.
If you're getting a fear signal from your parents early in life that's saying my parents are dangerous, but you're programmed
Right.
for connection with your parents and you can't
Right.
survive without that, one of those has to go.
Right.
So you learn I can't trust that fear sense, that gut
Yeah.
intuition that I have
Yeah.
is dangerous.
Yes.
So we stuff that down and we label it as I don't like that. So then later in life we can't see these signals.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, they're coming up all over the place. And this is a really fun and engaging dynamic is where in life are these signals going to come from? Where do you see them come from a lot of the times? This is so much fun.
Everywhere. Man, they're
Everywhere.
coming from everywhere.
Hmm.
And once the shades come off, then you begin to see them everywhere, and it's brilliant because we see that our nature is insistently but gently sending signal after signal that would grow our capacity.
Yeah.
And we train our coaches to reflect these back, and oftentimes we just reflect them back beneath the person's awareness, because as soon as the consciousness gets involved with it, awareness gets involved with it, then there is all the I like it, I don't like it that gets stuck on it. Like, is this good? Do I
Evaluations.
like that? Do I not like that? Is this really going to create the kind of thing that I want to do? Or
Hmm.
the reflexive conditioning
Yeah.
turns it into something else and
Yeah.
sort of, kills it for the moment. So,
Mentalizing it essentially.
say again?
Turning it into a mental aspect.
Yes,
Hmm.
yes, and just shifting it into, "Nope, I don't want that,"
Yeah.
or "I don't like that," or "I do like that, and so I'm gonna hold on to it, I'm gonna hoard it, I'm gonna make it more," and,
Hmm.
like, all of the stuff that we do. And so for these actions, we might just reflect those states in a way that is recognized within the system, because everybody is recognizing things that they don't, that isn't conscious. And so it just comes in, and it reinforces those states, and over a time of just consistently reinforcing those states, it becomes stable enough to become conscious,
Hmm.
and conscious enough that we don't have to manipulate it at all. We can just be with that, and then it does what it's meant to do, which means it increases the arousal just enough that is organically determined, that then it does that switch of growing thresholds.
It's like these systems in nature. We have this idea that they have to be controlled and manipulated and managed, but there's so much intelligence and wisdom that we don't understand that the more that we try to manipulate it, the more we're destroying it in lots of
Yeah.
ways. And
Yeah.
so, if we could get back in line with that natural intelligence system, it becomes self sustainable. It takes care of itself. Um, this is getting really interesting. So we have these signals that are coming from everywhere. And I mean, I can remember times in my life where I was becoming aware of that. Just how
Yeah.
incredible you start to see things all around you that you weren't aware of before. And it really makes me wonder, okay, so all this destruction that we're seeing in the world around us, I think is perhaps an external manifestation or expression of the internal conflicts that we're having. So if
Yeah.
we're really disconnected from ourselves, of course, we're disconnected from each other and we're disconnected from the world around us. And so, so many people are willing to destroy everything around them right now for an illusion of comfort or commodity. So we'll around me right now, they're destroying lots of old growth wild forests and they're putting in new highways to connect cities. And you got to have your cheap coffee. You got to have your, your generic grocery store where they're shipping in food from around the world. And people are genuinely excited about this on the one hand, and then a lot of people are completely outraged. And so I wonder, the more that we connect with these systems, the more that we can engage with them and they become self sufficient, what type of things can we create in the world around us? Because these disconnects, right? We're disconnected from ourselves, disconnected from each other, the world around us, but then the things that we do don't represent who we are. So we have so many people who are trying to be important, trying to be valued, chasing power and status because they don't think that they're good enough. They can
Yeah.
have hundreds of billions of dollars and still be poor because
Right.
that sense of I'm not good enough. But if we could recover the part of them that is good enough, all of this human ingenuity, all of these resources that we have, rather than building these, strip malls that are decaying 5, 10 years from now, or shooting rockets to the space and, building all of these billionaire bunkers. I mean, we could build like Rivendell from Lord of the Rings, and we could live in like the most ecological, like, I watched Avatar, the original one where they're on Pandora and they're just showing all the astonishing magnificence of this planet. Well, that exists all around us.
Sure
I
does.
mean, I see it every single day, and yet we're so disconnected from it that we destroy it. So I'm
Yes.
I'm wondering, what do you think, Steve, in terms of all this destruction that we're seeing around us, all of these
Yeah.
patterns of people who are so greedy and always poor and don't have enough and always got to have more, and they'll reach the highest positions of power and status, and then they go and enact their will on other people, trying to get that illusion of control. How can we work with that? And what do you think the outcomes of doing this type of work to reconnect with ourselves and these intuitive systems? What do you think we'll see here?
We've got to grow some thresholds. We've got to grow thresholds because even seeing the destruction, the impulse is various. For one person where it's just too much, they collapse. It's like there's nothing I can do. It's hopeless.
Mhm.
For another person, they're like just so disconnected. They go, well, whatever. I'm I'm here for a short time. I'm just going to get what's mine. And for another person, they're outraged, and we go and protest, and we try to make a change, but none of that makes a change. And none of that makes a change because, we have a specific strategy with individuals, which is like if people are shutting down, it's because the intensity is over threshold.
Mhm.
In other words, it makes sense. For a long time, I've been saying this thing that's trauma means unintegrated resource. Trauma means unintegrated resource. So, our strategy, if someone is, say, disconnecting, is to say, for one person, it might be like, how do you feel the benefit of that protection.
Mhm.
How is the benefit registering for you?
Yeah.
And we help them connect to the aspect of what's functional about what they're doing,
Mhm.
because that's what they're disconnected from. They're having to do it over and over again because they don't feel the benefit of what they're doing. And so we have this kind of paradoxical approach that says, let us feel what's there, what's right about right now,
Mhm.
and we trend our attention to that so that then the intensity will be there. That is, oh, this feels so good, and they feel the relief of the experience, and then they open again. It's like, oh, I am girded with relief and hope now. And from that, I can open. We don't open by prying people open like a clamshell or something, like, oh, come on, let's be vulnerable. Let's see your gooey, clammy middle, let's create the situation where the blossoms open naturally. Let's give it the right conditions, the warmth, the light, the sun, the moisture, the environment in which we can grow. And that's what we do. We reconnect, and if we can reconnect, then I'll not be so reactive, and I can be involved freely. We call in the notion of nishkam karma, to be able to act spontaneously and responsively without attachment to the outcome. Nishkam karma. But that takes a lot of steps.
That's
It's a
hard.
lot of steps from like, hey, things are just too much overall, to now I'm going to be with everything as it is and just bring love to it. If we can grow thresholds, then I think one of the things we're going to need to be ready for is the threshold of grief.
Mhm.
Like, the loss that we're facing right now means that every day there is some amount of grief that we are carrying,
Yeah.
and our ability to have that grief is really important. One, because it's just there. Two, it's totally appropriate. And three, it is a measure of our love for the world. And so if we can hold the threshold of grief and not have to push that away, but to be in that without either being overwhelmed by it, because it's a tsunami. The world, the climate, nature, as you're describing, is under assault and being destroyed. How could we not feel grief for this beautiful Pandora planet that we are on,
Yeah.
and not be incapacitated by it? To
Mhm.
hold the grief and to hold the joy takes massive thresholds to be able to have both of those. So
Yeah.
we've got to grow our thresholds.
That's right. Our ability to be with the things that are happening and how it makes us feel. And that
Yeah.
shutting down, that disconnecting, that's a defense mechanism. It's a
Yes.
protection to keep us from feeling the things.
Yes. Yes. So let us feel the protection.
Yeah. And that pain, the pain of grief, the pain of loss, pain is one of those emotions. It's there for a reason.
Yeah.
It has a strong wisdom that comes along with it. If you put your hand on the stove burner, you feel the pain, it's giving you a signal. And if you
Yep.
shut that down and you don't listen to it, well, then you burn your hand off. And
Right.
that's kind of where we're at right now, where we're burning up. And to really look at the situation as, oh, this is so painful. Look at how much devastation and pain and let's take responsibility and accountability for it. It's so easy to blame everybody else and say it's the billionaires, it's the politicians, it's those people over there, it's this guy, it's all those. But what am I doing that's contributing to this?
Yes.
If we can build
And
the, go ahead.
I think if at the point at which responsibility is no longer experienced as a saddle, but as a liberation, then we're in a better condition. That is,
Precisely.
the ability to respond is actually a source of joy.
Mhm.
Like the ability to be self-responsible, this is a source of like celebration.
Yes.
But instead, we're like, oh, I got to be responsible, and so that shift is one of the shifts that we would like to see.
Yes.
Celebration of
Yes.
self-responsibility.
Self-responsible and being responsible to the things that are really important. Yeah, it's, "Oh, I gotta be responsible," but I have so many tasks that are meaningless, that are imposed on me by the job that I hate, by the people I don't wanna engage with, by doing the things that I don't wanna do, so responsibility typically has a very negative connotation, especially in terms of our life where we might be in a pattern of conflict, for instance, and it's very easy to say, "I'm in conflict because of that person."
Yes.
Yeah, but when we really look at it, we see that that pattern was there long before that person. It was with somebody else, and it goes all the way back to our early years. So, in which case, the common denominator would be me. And so, if I
Yes.
can see that and not beat myself up over it,
Mm.
and not saying like I'm proud of this thing. Yeah, I'm confrontational. I get in conflicts with everybody, but saying, oh, I have a pattern of
Yes.
really seeking out conflicts when I don't want it. Can I respond to that differently? Can I
Mm.
be aware of it and make choices to do something else, to take that energy that would have been in that conflict? And instead of having confrontations, can I have connection,
Mm.
understanding, attunement? Can I listen to myself and to other people? Yeah, we can really free ourselves from those patterns. This is crucial, but it's a tough one to swallow.
And we make it easier to swallow because we remind people that, what Gurdjieff said, what we know about the nature of reality, it's always in polarities. Like, I
Mhm,
like it, I don't like it. Every state has those two sides. So there, when I become aware of my initiating conflict or my unconscious way of creating the situation I think I don't want,
mhm,
then it's so easy to become self-judging.
mhm,
But instead, in that moment, we might, for instance, look at the other side. There is the aspect of it that doesn't work,
mhm,
and then there is something else. And the question about what else is there in that moment is something we would explore. For instance, like when I say, "Oh, I get angry easily," and I might ask, like, when you say that and you get angry easily, where do you feel something like that? And is there an energy to that might feel okay? For
mhm,
instance, is there a sense of empowerment in that condition?
mhm.
What is it of that state that we might harvest that is
Yeah.
actually a resource there? And
Yes.
so we make it very, very palatable because a person says, oh, I begin to feel like my jaw tighten a little bit and my eyes narrow and I have focus. And that's super cool. I'm normally sort of ADHD, but now I
Mhm,
have this focus and that's rocking. And the enjoyment of those states increases the intensity, may increase it right up to that organic threshold, and they grow the capacity so that the next impulse of anger may not then have to be released through yelling or
mhm,
fighting. It might just be felt like, oh, here's this energy of focus that comes up, and I kind of dig that. I'm going to just be in that, and I'm not acting it out because I'm having to release it because it's over threshold. Instead, it is nutritional for
mhm.
my system.
Yeah. Yeah, when we get into that assessment, the evaluation, the judgment, we're in that mental realm again. And we were talking about
Yep.
that earlier. And that's where we have lost the signal. We can't see it anymore. We have now gone into, we're no longer present. We are now in the mental world up here assessing the thing that's happening. So, in those examples, a lot of it comes down to, it sounds like, instead of evaluating this thing, do I like it? Do I dislike it? Do I want to engage with it? Do I want to avoid it? What's the teaching here? What is the
What cha-
signal?
Yep. What is the signal and what channel is it coming in?
Hmm.
So I may have a mental judgment, the automatic thing that happens. I like it, I don't like it. And I don't have to change that. I might switch to a different channel and look for where is the better signaling coming from. And for some people, it might be a sensation like, oh, I feel my jaw tightening and my eyes, kind of focusing. For another person, it might be an image like, oh, I see a volcano going off. And instead of like wiping out the landscape, it's just releasing. It's just a lava flow and
Creating an
creating
island.
new
Yeah.
land.
Hmm.
Yeah. So any of the isoma channels can hold the kernel of our growth, but we just have to find it.
Hmm.
And oftentimes it's by getting some help from like ROI coaches that'll say, "Oh, I wonder right now, you're seeing an image of a volcano. I wonder, as you think about, Pele and the creation of new land, how that thought is."
Hmm.
And we're looking for the other channel, image, sensation, orientation, meaning or affect, isoma. Which other isoma channel holds the support that is there for us in that experience?
What's going right with this thing?
What's right now? Yes, what's going right
Mhm.
with this
What
thing?
does it do for me? What's the teaching? What's the lesson? How does this help me? If we
Yes,
get so caught up in the judgment of I like it or I don't like it, and should I avoid it or should I engage
yes,
with it, we miss
yeah,
all of this. And
yes,
so many of these patterns, like we were talking about the shutting down, it does something for us. It gives us a sense of protection and safety, even if it's very short and then we go into long term suffering. But
yes,
there was a sense of safety. Okay, so the safety is the message. This is what I'm looking for.
yeah,
Really trying to discern what is coming through. I see exactly what you're talking about here. This is
right.
this is crucial. And when somebody's in it, when they're in the storm, it's like putting together a 10,000 piece puzzle and they can only look at it from an inch away. They can't see it. And when we're on
Yeah,
the outside and we can
yeah,
really connect and attune with them, we can help them see the picture.
yes, yes, that's a beautiful description. Yes, to see the bigger picture, to see the other pieces of the puzzle
Hmm.
that aren't visible.
Yeah.
And and it takes a while. And somehow the other thing, Julian, that we need to name here is that we're talking now about primarily the internal experience, like the images, sensations, thoughts, and the affects. But there is the other piece that is foundational. It's literally foundational before any of the internal work, often, which is the connecting to the environment through the senses.
Hmm.
Part of the reason we don't feel safe is that we are feeding our safety assessment mechanisms all of the echoes from the past.
Hmm.
And that's from the internal experience. When you connect to the external through the senses, what we call orientation, then we're helping the brain actually do what it wants to do and what it does best, which is helps us feel ready for what's coming.
Hmm.
The brain is primarily the predicting brain. And it's not, and it can predict based on what's was in the past, and that's what we've been talking about. Or we can feed it messages from the here and now, and it can make predictions about what's coming based on that reality. And so we practice this orientation of connecting to the environment through the senses. And that's actually external attention or exteroception. We pay attention to
Sure.
the external world because we don't have to judge it so much. We're
Hmm.
not into so much, ooh, that's dangerous or not. It's a tree. It's like, do I feel great about it or do I not feel great about it? Well, it's a tree. Who cares? It's kind of neutral in that way. And so orientation is the other key, I think,
Hmm.
to this whole thing. It sets the context for minimizing the arousals of I like it, I don't like it.
Hmm. Yeah, we can get so caught up in the pain from the past showing up here, and then this predicting mind projecting that pain from the past onto the present moment.
Yes.
So I can be sitting here having a conversation with you. I can be totally safe. We're having a fun, enjoyable conversation. And all of a sudden, whoom, the anxiety comes in, the dread, the something bad is going to happen. And I mean, I could even be sitting here alone. And I
Yes.
mean, this used to happen to me so much. This was something I really had to work through. I'll be alone in a room. I won't even be with anybody. And
Yeah.
whoom, something terrible is about to happen. Somebody's going to come kicking
Dread.
in my door and they're going to
Yeah.
come and get me and take me away.
Yeah.
And here, I can really orient to the world around me and look around and say, is that gonna happen? You know how many times I actually had to go open my door and look
Oh, good for
around
you.
and
Good for you.
verify, is there a threat here?
Yes. Yes.
And I talked to a therapist, one of the first therapists I ever worked with when I was dealing with that, and she said, "Oh, you're just paranoid and maybe perhaps schizophrenic, and we
Oh
should
my
we should get you
god.
on some medication."
Oh, no.
And I said, "No, I'm okay. I won't do that." And I
Right?
didn't see her anymore after that. And
Yeah.
then later on, I was doing this work on myself, and I asked myself the question: was there ever a time where somebody was kicking in my door like that or coming in and was harming me? And the answer was, yeah, obviously. That's the story of
Yeah.
my childhood right there.
Right, right.
Okay, so that's pain from the past that's coming into the present moment. And if
Yes.
I can orient and look around and verify, is this happening now? No, it's not. Nobody's here right now coming to get me. And I can take steps to be safe. I can lock my doors, I can go and verify, so on and so forth. Oh, now I can come and create safety. I can
Yeah.
work with that pain from the past internally by orienting to the safe bubble that I have around me out here.
Oh, that's so good. And the context that you raise is so important. It's brilliant work that you were doing, and goes right along with what we were suggesting. Like, oh, I'm gonna go to the door, and I'm going to feel the lock.
Hmm.
Like I can think of it like, yeah, I locked the door, but what if I go over to it and I really get it in another channel, like the sensation channel?
Yeah.
I had the M channel, the meaning channel. Yeah, it's locked. What if I get the sensation channel in there, and then I get the feeling of, yeah, it's locked. I feel more secure,
Yeah.
and I've got the emotion, and right, we get all of these other channels helping us realize the reality.
Hmm.
And it becomes simple. Then it's like, okay, there's just that, the lock, there is the safety, there's security, there is now this room, and there's this space, and the whole topic of safe or not comes off because we want to practice that orientation ongoingly,
Hmm.
which is just like, oh, just here, just now.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yeah. And, for something like that, if you're not safe, if you're feeling not safe, and this is fear and anxiety coming from the past,
Yes.
chances are one of the things that you really needed at that time was protection. And
Yes.
so here you get to go verify the locks. You get to go make sure that
Yeah.
you're protected. So you become the person that you needed that you didn't
Yeah.
have.
That's so good. That is so good. There's been another topic that has been coming to mind as we've been talking. I just want to ping it here. That one was the orientation.
Hmm.
Like the brain does this predictive regulation, needs feedback from the here and now exterior environment to really help us feel ready for what's coming. Like if I'm in Alaska or something and it's cold and I'm looking out the door and it's going to be out the window and it's going to be cold and I'm going to go outside, my body will begin to rev up the metabolism, do little pre goosebumps, and it'll get me ready for what's coming.
Yeah.
And so to replace the historical prediction with the here and now prediction through orientation, that's one key. The other thing is, and I'm not sure exactly how to speak it, so I'm just going to
Hmm.
say it here, and maybe we can sort it a little bit. Is that when we've lacked that empathy as a young person, then empathy and those positive reflections feel so good. It's like that's the medicine I need. And so I just need it more, and I need it all the time. But it often will just keep the person stuck in the loop of seeking ongoing support forever
Yeah.
because it's a black hole that can't be filled somehow.
Hmm.
And I wonder, you've done some pretty advanced work clearly with yourself, and I wonder if we might consider that, like how to help somebody get out of the trap of presuming it's just that relational nurturance that's going to fill the gap,
Hmm.
if
Yeah.
that makes sense to
Oh,
you at all.
yeah. Yeah. I see that a lot. And, honestly, I think that, well, from my graduate training in therapy, This was one of the foundational characteristics of the training was this relational dependence. One of the first things that I can't tell you how many classes this was one of the first things that they would teach us was your job as a therapist is to keep the client coming back. Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah. And I totally disagree with that. I think that our job as somebody who's helping somebody is to help them find all of the capacity and the wisdom inside of themselves so they don't need us. When we're talking about that seeking, this is one of those emotional circuits, just like the rage, the grief, the play, seeking, which is how can I make my life better? How can I find better food? How can I find a better shelter? How can I find better relationships? And when we go through early trauma and these emotional circuits don't develop properly, that one becomes hyper vigilant. It's we're always seeking, always looking for the next thing to give us the fix. But if we can learn, like you were just saying, how can I find that relational attunement, the empathy that you're talking about, attunement, really being connected with myself? And how can I really be present and connected and attuned to whoever it is that I'm talking to, whether I just met you or whether you're my most cherished, precious connection? How can I be more and more present? What I find is that if we can really develop that capacity, if I can help somebody develop that capacity to be present with themselves and to learn how to be present and navigate the things that are happening in life, they don't need me anymore.
Hmm.
And they can develop that fairly quickly. Like I'm talking within, several weeks, 6
Yeah.
weeks, 8 weeks. They can get that. And then once they have that capacity to be present, to be attuned with what they're feeling, to listen to the signals, and to navigate it in healthy, constructive ways, meaning that they can identify what their needs were that went unmet and how can they meet those needs in, again, constructive ways. They don't need me.
Yeah.
They might come back at one point and say, hey, I ran into this circumstance. I hit a wall. I plateaued. I can't quite figure this thing out right here. I went back into the old pattern. And I just, again, help them with the basics. And the goal is that they can do it on their own, which I think
Mm.
is the antithesis of modern therapy today.
And and the dependency that might be there that takes advantage of what we think of probably as like an early developmental moment. I mean,
Hmm.
we're talking in some ways about the difference between dependence and co-regulation. And at early stages of development, we literally need somebody else for our survival.
Precisely.
And when that gets projected onto, say, a helper
Hmm.
or a partner, then they literally feel like, oh, it is survival if we have the kind of contact that I need.
Yeah.
And it becomes very charged.
Or how about this one, Steve? When that fundamental need for that attachment never was fulfilled, so then we become the helper, we become the therapist, we become the doctor, so that way people are going to need us.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah, this is probably who we are, who we're talking to also, and
Mhm.
so it's really brilliant. And our strategy holds here for us, which is that we practice the experience of how in the moment my needs are getting met.
Mhm.
That is, oh, I need you to be here, and then you go, well, you're in luck because I'm here. But how do you experience
Yeah,
that?
that's so
How does
important.
that experience land?
Yep.
Or if you're helping somebody and you feel the pleasure of it, to really feel the value of it, you're not driven by need anymore because somehow that need is being experienced as satisfied.
Yeah,
And so this practice of enjoyment, the practice of that simple pleasure is within the context of orientation, what helps us grow the thresholds so that then the aching need that doesn't have to go away. It's simply not pushing us over threshold. It's still there, but it can be like held with tenderness and compassion.
nurture it.
Nurture it. Yeah. exactly.
Incredible. Steve, we're coming up on time. What this conversation is really making me consider is that I should really extend the amount of time that I have to talk to people because I would talk to you all day.
I'm totally down. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, as we're approaching our time, is there any final word, final message that you would want to leave with somebody who's listening right now?
I think uh, don't underestimate the power of connecting to the environment through the senses. Like the practice of just noting what is in your environment visually, in terms of sound, hearing, seeing, smelling, taste, like putting more attention there than the internal. I think is really key. I think the mirroring that we didn't get as little people then shows up as me compulsively observing my own experience,
Mhm.
trying to mirror myself back into existence. So I think instead we can be present by connecting to the environment through the senses, and that will begin to create a whole different experience. So I think that's one thing. And then the other thing is that we do train coaches, and so training in this is maybe one of the best ways to heal. And would invite your listeners to check out Organic Intelligence at organicintelligence.org and join us for growth, enjoyment, compassion, and well-being.
Sometimes these types of trainings are the best way to learn about yourself and to work through the things that you're going through. And I think the majority of us who become therapists, coaches, that's what we're really looking for when we're getting started anyway. So that sounds
Right?
like a fantastic resource. I'll have it linked in the show notes. Is there any other way that people can find you, social media or anything that you'd like me to link?
We're on all the channels. So the website is the main one. We just got up a new website, so it'll be a good source of information. That's organicintelligence.org. O-R-G, as in organic.
Well, you heard it right there. I'll have it linked in the show notes. Please check out that website. Steve, it has been fantastic to connect with you. I'm so glad that we got to talk. I would love to stay connected. I'd love to see what you're doing out in the world. You're doing great things, and I'm so glad that we crossed paths.
No, it's a pleasure. We will let us remain connected from now on.